This training video will focus on file management. More specifically, it is a review of the fundamentals of organizing files. As you can see, I have an agenda here, and we're going to start by downloading files from the internet. We'll then launch the file manager within Windows. You can see I'll be sharing a number of keyboard shortcuts with you today. We'll then go right into renaming of not just storage devices but folders and files as well, and right into organization. So when we get into organization, it's about copying, moving files from one folder to the next, and in the end we will learn how to properly remove storage devices from your computer. So let's begin first by jumping out to the internet. Now note, I am going to be using Google Chrome, and this is the website we'll be using. You can see this is just the website I developed for one of my classes. To begin, I'm going to go to the social media web page where I've uploaded a number of course handouts. To download a Word document, you can see that there is a download file link, and that's accomplished by simply clicking on that link, download file, and you'll see that it will open at the bottom left corner of your screen. Now I can simply click on the button which will launch Microsoft Word and open up the file. You can see this is the week 1 agenda. And once it's opened, it's just a matter of clicking on the file ribbon and then saving it as, alright, hitting save as, and then pointing it to whatever storage device you want, whether it's your hard drive, or in my case, I'm going to select flash drive, right? And I could save it right here. Just call this one week 1 test. So you could rename it, do whatever you'd like, and then save. And that's it. So saving a Word document is pretty straightforward when downloading from the Chrome browser. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and let's go back to the website for a moment. Take a look at downloading something different, like a PDF file. Alright, so for this, if I click on download file, notice right away it launches the PDF in the browser. And whenever a PDF launches in Chrome, at least, you'll see that you have the option to save down here in the bottom right corner, this little toolbar. There is a save button on that toolbar. You click on that, and just like anything else, you'll get the save as option, and I can point it to my flash drive or whatever storage device I want to save it to. Okay, there's the name. I could leave it the way it is, and then I'll just hit save. Again, it'll appear at the bottom left corner of your taskbar here, and now you have a copy of that file on your flash drive. And what we'll do later when we get into the file manager is we'll take a look at where that is, or where we've placed those files on the storage device. Right now I didn't put them in any specific folder, they're just sitting there on the flash drive. Alright, so let me close this. That back on my agenda, this is where we are. We're ready to talk about launching Windows Explorer. Windows Explorer is the name of the application that we use to organize our files, or in other words, the file manager in Windows is Windows Explorer. There are a number of ways of launching the file manager in Windows, but I prefer the keyboard shortcut, and you can see it right here. If on your keyboard you hold down the Windows key and tap the letter E, it will launch the file manager, and you're looking at it right here. The file manager by definition is software that allows you to organize. So by organize, I'm talking about creating folders and subfolders on a storage device, saving files to it, or managing files on it. By that I'm saying to move or copy files from one folder to the next. Think of this as an electronic filing cabinet. The storage device can be a drawer in that filing cabinet. So for instance, if I look at the flash drive here, okay, F drive, that is my flash drive. That is my drawer in a filing cabinet with many drawers. Within this drawer I have a number of folders, much like you would in a physical filing cabinet drawer. I can organize my files by placing them into these individual folders or subfolders. Well, now that I'm here, if we go back to the agenda, let's talk briefly about renaming storage devices. That's really important because if you look here, let me go back to the actual computer. If you look here, without a name for your storage device, all of the devices will just have these little letters next to them. C drive, D drive, F drive. And some of them aren't even as descriptive as this. So to help you manage your files or find things more efficiently, I recommend renaming them, especially for removable devices like flash drives. To rename a flash drive, you simply have to right-click on the icon, and in the shortcut menu, okay, right here, select Rename. I'm going to left-click on Rename, and let's just call this one AMM. I'll just put in my initials, or A Magno. How about that? Once I type in the name, I hit Enter, and there it is. It's that easy to rename a device. One thing to note also is structure. You could see that the file manager has a left window and a right window pane. The left contains only folders and storage devices. On the right are the contents of the folders and storage devices. In order to see what's inside of a storage device, if you're working on the left window pane, for instance, let's say I wanted to see the contents of my flash drive. If I'm on the left window pane, I only have to click once. So if I left click on my flash drive here, the right side reveals the contents of that flash drive. You see that? All of the folders and files that I've stored here. Now, note, thinking of the flash drive as a drawer in a filing cabinet, you never want to see files floating around in a drawer, right? You should ideally only have folders, right? They should be organized. So you can see the 3 files that I have here currently are the ones that I used as in my example earlier. Normally I do not have files floating around this way. As such, I will move them later. So for now, we do have 3 files that are just floating there that shouldn't be there. Going back to the agenda, we now know how to rename storage devices. Now, what about folders? Folders are critical because you can see this is what enables you to organize your files, the information that's contained on your storage device. Again, we're primarily just working on my flash drive. One thing to note also, I am using Windows 8, but this looks pretty much the same in Windows 7 as well. You can see that there is a little address-like bar here, and as I start going into folder and subfolders, this is your path. You could always follow where you are at any point within the file manager. For instance, if I open up, let's say, this RSC-CD folder by double-clicking, you can see I'm now on the flash drive in a specific folder. And in this folder, I have subfolders. So if I go into, let's say, this Excel folder, I'll double-click. You can see it starts building a path, so I can always find my way or know where I am at any point inside of this file manager. And again, if I go into another subfolder, let's go into, I don't know, agendas. Look at that. Inside of this subfolder are more subfolders, so I could keep drilling down. If I go into Spring 2014, look at that, now I'm actually looking at files. So keep that in mind. Very helpful feature here, this little bar, is the path that you can follow to know where you are at any point within the file manager. Now the question is, how do you create folders so that you can better organize yourself? So let me go back to the actual flash drive. So I'm, again, using this path here in the bar. I'm going to click on my flash drive. And okay, this is just the main or the root directory. So on the flash drive itself, I want to create a brand new folder that we're just going to use for training purposes, for the purpose of this video. And there are a number of ways to create new folders. I think the most user-friendly is to look here on the toolbar. Actually, this may vary between Windows 7 and 8, so I'm going to show you a universal way to do this because Windows 7 will not have the folders here, or this toolbar looks different than it used to in Windows 7. To create a new folder, I'm going to show you the mouse way, or the right-click way of doing things. If you place your pointer on an empty part of your screen, so I'm avoiding any of the existing folders and files, I'm going to go into this empty section right down here, and I'm going to right-click. By right-clicking, remember, you will get a shortcut menu. The right-click on your mouse has only one purpose, and it is to bring up this shortcut menu. Once it pops up, you go back to the left mouse button. Now, what I want to do is create a new folder. So if I place my pointer on top of New, you'll see a submenu, and there is a folder option. So if I left-click on Folder, It's that easy. This will create a brand new folder. Note it's asking for a name. But the default name is new folder. I'm going to call this one, I'll just call this one practice folder. Once you type in the new name, you hit enter on your keyboard and that's it. You've completed the process of creating a new folder. There it is. If I double click on this to open it, you'll see that it is empty. There's nothing in the practice folder. If I go back to my flash drive, you can see that Windows Explorer automatically alphabetizes everything for you. So practice folder, which used to be on the bottom, is now properly sorted, and it is now here. I can create subfolders. Okay, a subfolder is simply a folder inside of a folder. If I open up the practice folder, so the key to subfolders is if you want to create one, you have to go to the destination. In my case, the destination is inside of the practice folder. So to do that, I open it up by simply double clicking. One habit to develop if you're new to using file managers is to double click on the icons. Okay, let me make this a little bigger so it's easier for you to see. If you look up here, there is a view tab and I can change my views. I am presently in details view. That is the standard view that I like to use the most because it gives you a lot of useful information. Dates, modified, types of files, size of files. For training purposes, I'm going to switch to large icons for now because it's easier to read and see. But you can see right away that I do have a practice folder, and I want you to get into the habit of double clicking on the icon versus the file name or the folder name. See what happens if you double click too slowly? You could end up renaming a folder or a file. If you double click too slowly on the icon, look at this, click, click, I'm not going to rename the file. If I double click too slowly here, click, click, look at that. I could end up deleting the name or renaming the file or folder. So make it a habit to double click on the icons. So if I double click here, I am now inside of the practice folder. To create a new folder, or in this case a subfolder, that is one inside of this one, I simply right click on an empty space. Up comes the shortcut menu, and just like before, I go to New, and then Folder. And as you can see, it's asking for a name, and I'm going to call this one Test Sub 1. Okay, once I type in the name, I hit Enter, and there is my subfolder. Let's go one further. Okay, I want to create a folder inside of the subfolder. Again, just like before, the first step is to open the destination folder. Go to the destination. I'm going to open up Test Sub 1. I'll double click on the icon. Again, focus on that. And if you look at the path, I'm now inside of this subfolder. To create a new folder, right side of my window pane, right click on the empty space, go to New, Folder. I'll call this one Test Sub 2. Hit Enter, and just like that, if I open this one, you'll see exactly where you are. So I went from the main folder to a subfolder and into a subfolder, if you will. And at any point, I can go back to the previous folder by simply clicking on it within this path bar, right? And then back to the flash drive. Now if you look here, renaming of folders, back to the agenda, that's pretty straightforward as well. It's exactly the same as renaming a device. So if I go back to Windows Explorer and let's go into the, let's say instead of practice folder, I just wanted to call this one practice. Well, if I right click on that folder, again, I get the shortcut menu. I'll left click on rename, and instead of practice folder, I'm just going to delete this part. See that? And hit enter. Oh, you know what? Let's call it test instead of practice. I'll right click here, left click on rename, and I'll just type right over it. It's that easy. Renaming files and folders is a right click away. Now let's talk about organization. Again, remember, organization is simply the moving and copying of files from one folder to the next, or from one storage device to another. What we're going to do is talk first about file selection. Going back to the file manager, you can see that I've just opened up my flash drive. I'm looking at the main drawer, right? And inside of here I should only see folders. Now what I did is I threw in a few extra files here just to show you how to better organize your information. First of all, let's look at these files. Notice that I switched to details view. Originally I had moved to large icons, which obviously they're easier to see, but I prefer details view because it gives you a lot of good useful information, as I mentioned earlier, especially when dealing with files. Notice if I click on this file, you can see this was last modified in October. It is a Microsoft Word document and it is 50 kilobytes in size. This is an Excel document or file, last modified in November, and here is the size. So as you can see, it's a very practical view. I like it because of the information it provides. It also helps because everything is sorted in alphabetical order. Now what we're going to do is talk about selection, because before you start moving or copying anything within the file manager, within the Windows file managing environment, you need to first select it. Now selecting them individually is not a problem. Alright, just click on it. You are selecting a file by simply clicking on it. But if you want to select more than one, and that will often be the case if you're going back and you want to do a spring cleaning here and you want to take these floating files, let's say 3 or 4 of them at a time, and move them into the appropriate folder. Well, to do that, you need to understand how to select. Right? So again, selection of a single file is easy. Simply left click on it. But if you want to select more than one, you have to do this in conjunction with some keyboard keys. If the files are next to each other, so for instance, if I wanted to select 5 files here, Activity 4 all the way through Excel Activities, you click on one file, hold down Shift, and click on the last file. See, if they're contiguous files or if they're next to each other, everything in between gets selected. And again, it's really important to focus on where you're clicking. Let me click away for a moment because I am sticking with the icons. Again, if you make the error of clicking on the name of the file, look at that. You could end up renaming it by mistake. So focus on only clicking on the icons adjacent to the text. Do not click on the text itself because you could run into this problem. You don't want to rename files inadvertently. So to repeat, for contiguous files, click on the first one, hold down Shift on the keyboard, and then click on the last file. Everything in between gets selected. So that's great if you want to select multiple files that are next to each other. To deselect, simply click in the empty white space and you can start over. Now, how do you select non-contiguous files? In other words, files that are non-adjacent or not next to each other. So if you wanted to select Activity 4 and Agenda Week 1 and maybe File Management Agenda, well, you start by just clicking on the first file, but then on your keyboard, hold down the Control key. Right now my Control key is pressed down and I'm holding it down. Now with my mouse I'm just going to click on that file there and that file there. As you can see, the files, all 3, are now selected and they are non-contiguous. So that's the first step in moving or copying files, is selection. It's important to know how to select multiple files, because this is definitely something you'll be doing quite a bit of. So as you're using it more and more and you're saving greater numbers of files, very important to know how to select them. So that is file selection. Now to move or copy, we're going to first talk about the right-click method. To do that, like before, the first step is to select the file. We'll start with a single file. Now let's talk about the differences between cut, copy, and paste. Whenever you hear a person say, okay, cut and paste something within when used in the context of computers. They're talking about moving, so think of cut as a move. Copy, on the other hand, is duplicate. It's duplicating information. But to start, we are going to, let's say we want a copy of this file. Okay, what I've done here is I placed a test file right here on the desktop of my computer. This is basically on my hard drive. So if I want to take a copy of a file that's currently on a different storage device, in this case it's on the hard drive of my computer, and I want to make a copy of it elsewhere, in this case on my flash drive, we can use the right-click method. As you can see, if I place my pointer on this file and right-click on it, there's an option here to send to. Okay, I'm in my shortcut menu, and in the sub-menu you will see my flash drive. Now note, let me make sure you can read this okay. The name of this file is test spreadsheet. So to repeat, simply right-click on that test file, or that file, and in the shortcut menu place your pointer on top of send to. I'm not even clicking on it. You simply have to hover your pointer on top of send to, and then you have to navigate in a straight line here. Alright, once you're here in the sub-menu, left-click on your flash drive. You see why it's important to rename your storage devices? It makes it that much easier to find. Otherwise, you're just going to be dealing with a bunch of these D, F, G, H, I, J, whatever the letters of the drive. Give it a name. So when you left-click on your flash drive, watch this. It looks like nothing happened. Test spreadsheet's still there. But if I go back to my flash drive, okay, I'm going to scroll down. There it is. You will see that it's now, if I scroll further, you'll see that the test spreadsheet is now here. By right-clicking on a file, you could send it to your flash drive from a different storage device. So the right-click method works fairly fast. It's easy to do. It's quick. But the problem with it is it sends it straight to the flash drive, but not into a specific folder. Notice that I didn't even have the opportunity to select a folder. So it's not a very organized way of copying files, because essentially what I did there was I copied it, because now I'm going to have to move it into the proper folder. The right-click method is great if you're in a rush. It's a fast way to take files that you want and place them onto your storage device, into your flash drive. But now let's talk about moving and copying. Alright, so by right-click method I should say that this is really a copy. Alright, that's a quick way of copying files. Let's talk about moving. Switching back to our test spreadsheet example, what if I wanted to move it from here into our test folder? Now we're going to start using keyboard shortcuts. The keyboard shortcut for cut, okay, in other words, to move, is Control X. Control X, notice when I hit it on my keyboard, it's very subtle, but that icon just became slightly faded. In fact, if I switch to large view, you can see it's a little bit more faded than the others. But right now it's sitting in what we call the clipboard. This is where files reside until you paste them elsewhere. Once I cut the file, the next step, or step 2, is to select the destination. Where would you like to place the file? I mentioned earlier I want it inside of my test folder. So I'm going to have to open it up. Notice it's not sufficient to simply click on it. To select it, you have to open up the destination. So to do that, I double click. You can see I'm now inside of the test folder. And to paste, the keyboard shortcut is Control V as in Victor. Look at that. Now, because this is a move, if I go back to the flash drive where that file used to reside, it is no longer here. It was effectively moved from floating there on my flash drive, and now it's sitting inside of its appropriate into a specific folder is what I just did here. Let's go back. I really like Details View. Alright, it's a lot more organized. How do you move multiple files? So we're going back to selection. Let's say I wanted to take everything from this file. I only want activity, agenda, and Excel activities moved. So you start by selecting the first file, again focusing on the icons, hold down the Control key, click on the files that you want. Notice I'm holding the Control key down. Click on the other one with your mouse. I've selected 3 files. You know what, let's do a fourth. I'll hold down Control and then I'll click on this one here. Actually, this one here. To move, the keyboard shortcut is Control X. X is in X-ray. Again, it's hard to tell, but they're all faded. They're sitting in the clipboard. Okay, that's step 1. Select the data and then cut it. Control X. To paste, before you do anything, you have to open up the destination folder. The destination folder is going to be test. So double click on the icon of the folder. You can see I'm now in the test folder. And then the shortcut for paste is Control V as in Victor. There they are. Let's go back to the flash drive, the root directory. Okay, what if they're all next to each other? It's a little bit easier to select. Begin by clicking on the first file that you want to move. Hold down Shift. Okay, not Control, but I'm holding down the Shift key now. And then left click on the last file. Everything in between gets selected. Right, so to select contiguous files, click on the first file, hold down Shift, keep it down, and then click on the last file so that everything in between gets selected. From here, the keyboard shortcut for move or cut is Control X. Go to the destination folder, test, and then paste it. So confirm that you are inside of the correct folder, and then paste, which is Control V as in Victor. And there it is. Notice we still have subfolders. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to rename this one to, let's say, Word documents. So if I right click on that folder, I'm going to left click on rename, and we'll call this one Word documents. Okay, let me open this one up. Let's rename this one to Excel files. Same thing, right click, rename, Excel files, and then enter. If I open this one up, let's create a new subfolder just for practice. And to do that, it's, remember, right click on the empty space, hover over new, left click on folder, and we'll call this one PDFs. Let's go back to our test folder and let's start organizing these guys. Well, since I want all my Word documents in the proper folder, I'm going to only select Word documents. To do that, I click on this guy here, and I can see I have 3 Word documents. So they're next to each other. Hold down Shift, click on the last one, all 3 are selected. To move them, the keyboard shortcut is Control X. Notice they're faded. Go to the destination, which is Word documents, and then paste. Control V as in Victor. If I go back to the test folder, you'll see that there are no more Word files here. I've moved them to the right folder. Now the next goal is to take all of my Excel files and move them into the Excel folder. Now here's another thing you might want to use. Let's take a look at this left window pane. We've kind of been ignoring this, but it's very useful. As you can see, our storage device, when you place your pointer right on top of it, you'll see a little triangle next to it. By clicking on this triangle, you can expand. That little triangle is an indicator that there are subfolders within the storage device, or folders in this case, right? And whenever there are subfolders or folders inside of folders, that folder too will have a little triangle or an indicator that there are subfolders within. In our case, we created a test folder, And if I hit the little triangle here, I can expand. It's called you can expand and collapse these folders. You see that when I expand the test folder, I can see that there's a subfolder called Word Documents, which also has the ability to expand. And if I click on that, you can see that inside of Word Documents is Excel files, and if I expand this, inside of Excel files there's PDFs. So realize, if there are no subfolders, you will not see a little triangle next to it, because PDFs, as you can see, although it's a folder, has no subfolders. So just keep in mind, only folders that have subfolders will contain or have this little triangle indicator next to it, letting you know that it can be expanded or collapsed. Now, to collapse a folder, watch this. If I don't want to see PDFs, I can collapse it by clicking here. Same thing with test. If I just want to collapse the whole thing, I'll click on the triangle next to test. At any point I can expand when needed. Now it becomes important, because when you organize, when it comes to moving, copying files, it really helps to see the subfolders right away, so that you don't have to remember, okay, what was inside of test, or what was inside of Word Documents. Well, here you can fully expand folders and subfolders until you get to the right subfolder or destination. Well, we already know how to move files using keyboard shortcuts. How do you copy them? Alright, so in this case, let's use the first two files as an example. If I want to copy Activity 4 and Excel Activities, Final Draft, and I want to copy them into Excel files, the first thing is select, right? Let's say I want to do 3 or 4. I'm going to hold down Control, click on this one, and that one. I'm just randomly selecting files. Okay. To copy, the keyboard shortcut is Control C. C is in copy. I've now copied the information, and if I wanted to place them inside of, let's say, I don't know, PDFs, I'm just going to pick this one. The cool thing is, if you're seeing them here on the left window pane, all you have to do is click once on the destination and it opens it up. Notice the path shows where you are, and now I can just paste, and the shortcut here is Control V to paste, just like before. Now, these are 4 files. Since I copied them, Test Book Activity 4, they should all still be in the original. Oops, where was it? Here? Yeah. See, they're still here. Nothing was moved. I simply duplicated them. So those 4 files are still here, but they're also inside of, if I click on PDFs, here. Let's talk about the drag and drop method, because if you're really good with, or if you prefer using the mouse versus keyboard shortcuts, the drag and drop method is pretty nifty. If you wanted, for instance, to take information, let's say the first or the last 4 files here, and you wanted to put them inside of the Excel files folder, again, click on the first one, hold down Shift, click on the last one. Now the drag and drop method is really cool if you use the right mouse button. Let me show you why. Once you select the files, simply right click and drag on any one of the files. Notice all 4 will move with you. And if I wanted to put them all inside of, let's say, okay, so if I right click and drag it, let's say into PDFs, look at this. I get choices. I could either move or copy. It's really nice to know. If I want to copy them, I hit copy here. Okay, so these last 4, if I look inside of Excel, oh sorry, I think I moved them PDFs. Yep, if I look inside of here, they've been combined with the other ones, but they're still in my test folder. Now if I wanted to move them to Excel files, let's say, which is presently empty, let's take the last 4 again, click on the first, hold down Shift, click on the last. I'm going to right click and drag them into Excel files, but this time I'm going to select move. By moving them, they will disappear from the test folder. See that? But if I go into Excel files, you'll see them there. Let's go back to test. Alright, so for the remaining files, actually PDF does belong in the PDF folder. So I'm going to just right click and drag that guy right on top of PDFs. Notice you know when you're on the right folder because it highlights it in blue, right? If I'm down too low, I don't want to let go until I'm right on top of it. You let go, and then you could left click on move. And there it goes. And for the remaining 4, I will put them inside of Excel files. So click on the first one, hold down Shift, click on the last one, right click and drag on any one of the selected files, go to your destination folder, let go, and left click on move here. Look at that. If I go back to my flash drive, you can see that I've effectively cleaned it up. No floating files there anymore. Looking back to the agenda, you can see that we've covered all of these items here. At this point, we're now ready to talk about ejecting your flash drive. The proper way to do this on a Windows-based computer is to look towards the bottom right corner of your screen. There's a little, this may be difficult to see, but there's a little a little triangle. Once clicked on, you will be able to click on this safely remove icon. So if I left click on that, you could see the flash drive here, and by clicking eject USB mass storage device, it will allow you to safely remove it. Before you even get here, you have to remember to close everything that's been saved to that flash drive. So in my case, I'm going to have to close this agenda. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's just close everything to make sure nothing. Oh, what I'm going to do is upload this file management document to the website for you to download. It goes over everything step by step. Selection, cut, copy, paste, so that you don't have to memorize all this great stuff. So I'm going to save this. Actually, let me convert it now into a PDF that you can now, that can be uploaded to the website later. Alright, so that is saving. Oh, looks like it's done. With everything closed, if I go back to that triangle and eject it here, you can see once this indicator, this message pops up that it's safe to remove, you can go ahead and remove it from your flash drive, from your computer. To summarize, you now know how to download files from websites, launch the file manager using the keyboard shortcut depicted here. We also now know how to rename files, folders, and devices, how to create folders, subfolders, organizing, meaning move, duplicate files, as well as properly eject or remove flash drives from computers. That is everything that I want to cover on file management or organizing files on a Windows-based computer.